Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the global door number TC511. This is a adjustable door closer and is very full-featured in the sense of its capabilities. The 511 is a very narrow style closer that has a unique footprint. It's likely that you're purchasing this as a replacement, and if you are, we'll get to the center-to-center dimensions in a moment, and that would be the guiding light by which you would order this. This model includes a full cover, which will allow it to perhaps make it look a bit more architecturally pleasing. This is shown in the aluminum finish. It's of course available in dark bronze as well as a gold finish. This closer is going to include the complete forearm and main arm assembly. Okay. It's going to include the parallel arm bracket. It will include obviously fasteners for everything, for both wood and steel installations. And of course those funny screws that you need to secure the arm down to the spindle. And then of course the main arm and forearm together. And then finally, an Allen wrench, which will allow you to adjust the spring tension that is here, indicated by the arrow. Okay. Your valves are up in the top of the unit. Now, door closers like this, surface-mounted closers, are very generic in the sense that the approach to how to install them is always very, commonly the same. This unit specifically is going to be used when you have a requirement for grade 1. You have an application that requires a very high rating of cycles, like the grade 1 is tested to 1,000,000 cycles. So it would take an application that will have high volume, maybe a small amount of abuse, that sort of application where you would want grade 1. This is compliant with UL 10C for positive pressure. You might have a fire-rated door that must be positive pressure compliant. This is tested to that. Aluminum alloy shell, which is not, it's handy because this closer becomes less heavy than other grade 1 closers. This weighs just over 7 pounds with all of its components, the arm, the box, the packaging. Completely non-handed. You can totally reverse this. That cover is included, multi-sized, so that with this spring power you will be able to adjust this in handicap compliant or ADA compliant, Americans with Disability Act compliant applications, which allows for the ability to handle applications that not only require handicap compliance, but it will allow you to adjust the tension from a size 1, which would be for a very, very light door, to a size 4, which would be appropriate for up to 3-foot doors that were mounted on an exterior wall and a parallel arm mount, or maybe a pull side mount if you were doing up to 3'6". The thing to keep in mind with barrier-free ADA compliant closers, that with a reduced opening force, which this is compliant, being below the cutoff of 7.5 pounds for handicap compliance, comes a reduced closing force. So if your application does not call for handicap compliance and you need a stronger door closer, this may not be the best option because you don't have the ability to crank the spring power up to compensate for maybe an air pressure condition, a situation where you've got a back door opening and this door opening as well, and you need that door to close even though air is racing through the corridor, let's say. A variety of applications. Interior doors, regular arm mount, handicap compliant. This is a great choice. It's perfect for that application. 3 independent regulating valves that are going to be on the closer. You've got, let's go over them. First of all, from open, starting from a closed position, 15 to 0. That valve is what's called the latch valve. It's because it's the 0 to 15 degree range. Controlling that valve allows control over the door closer in the closing cycle of the door from 0 to 15 degree. The 180-15, that's the sweep valve, and that allows you to control the door from 16 degree, well, not really to 180, but to generally about 90 degree. Then you've got the BC valve, and that's back check. Back check is going to be very commonly used or come into play when you have an exterior door. That door swings out. You'd probably be parallel arm mounting it. And the back check allows a third valve that performs the function of arresting the door when the door gets out to about 90, and let's say a gust of wind grabs it. The back check will help arrest the travel of that door when it gets out to that range. It is not a dead stop. It is not the proper piece of hardware to prevent a door, to limit it, but it's there intended to help assist with that sort of application. And a back check would be the appropriate closer to use on that exterior door. Again, your spring tension is set here. Now, I had mentioned earlier that door closers and the approach to them is fairly generic, and what I mean is you're always going to get installation instructions with your door closer. There's generally 4 pages to it, although this is different. It's not 4 pages. You'll have 1 page of summary. Maybe some parts that are going to be listed there, identification of those parts, maybe some generic settings in terms of, the controls that we just went over. The other 3 pages are going to be divided between the regular arm mount, the top jam mount, and the parallel arm mount. And those 3 are the 3 common ways by which you will install a door closer. So in these installation instructions really have that first page broken up into 2, where they graphically show the different types, and then they'll show the settings. Okay, so starting with the first page of the installation instructions, and of course there is a link below this video to the PDF so that you can review this prior to purchase, after purchase condition. You're going to immediately recognize that what you have is a regular arm, a top jam, and a parallel arm. Now, a regular arm is where you mount the body onto the door and the arm onto the header when you're on the pull side. That's regular arm. Top jam, and it's less common, is when you mount the body to the header and the arm to the door, and you're on the push side. The parallel arm is the opposite of the top jam in that you mount the body to the door. Because it's a parallel arm is when you're going to engage the parallel arm bracket. Body goes onto the door, arm goes onto the header using the parallel arm bracket when you're on the push side. So regular arm is pull. Then if you're going to install it on the push side, if you have an outswing door, you're either going to do top jam or parallel arm. That's the bottom line. That's how you'll go about determining it. So you're going to make your determination on which method you're going to go about installing the closer. The list of parts is indeed there and identifies everything. Your body, your main arm, your forearm, your cover. List of fasteners down here. What this does not include would be sex bolts. If you have a fire-rated wood door, or any wood door, or any door that's not reinforced, including a steel door, or if you're not going to drill and tap the door, if it's metal, you'll want to order sex bolts for the material. Those are available to be purchased separately with this closer. You can search that term and you will be able to find it in the website. That's very typical and common. Quite frankly, I would think with a grade 1 closer they would be inherently included, but they're not. So keep that in mind. You're likely going to need to come up with the optional sex nuts and bolts. The point being that there's so much force that's generated on a closer body and the fasteners holding it to the door. If you had a fire-rated wood door where it's nothing other than mineral core filled, it's a very fine dust compacted powder, has 0 screw withdrawal strength really. You'd need to through bolt that, and quite frankly the requirement of the fire-rated opening would require you to through bolt it. So then, because these installation instructions are a bit spread out, the other page is going to be all your adjustments, okay? And that we've touched on, where those are all going to apply. So what I like to do is when I get the closer installed, I very carefully test it, and then I will manipulate my valves by maybe a quarter turn, and then cycle that door a couple of times, test the new behavior of the door, and then adjust accordingly. What you absolutely must be sure of is that you don't turn that adjusting screw out of the top of the closer or bottom, however you're installing it. This is all under pressure, these valve stems, and if you loosen that, you'll have leakage of the closer, of the hydraulic oil, of the fluid, and you'll have no way to put the genie back in the bottle, sort of. And to finish up talking about the valves, that back check you will never close all the way. That would basically all but keep that door in a position like this, and it would not really move whatsoever. And if you were to pull on that door because it's stuck out here, you would damage the closer. So never close it all the way. You want to be very careful with how you adjust these. The control valve adjustments, as I said earlier, a quarter turn, maybe a half turn in either direction. Test the unit again is how you'll go about doing that. The spring power adjustment. The three methods of installation that we're going to touch on briefly next will all give a power adjustment chart that you will follow when you're doing this. You're going to leave it set at the factory setting, or you're going to adjust it based on the power adjustment chart for your application. That's crucial because you've got valves here that are under hydraulic pressure. So you'll set that. You'll then adjust your sweep, your latch, back check valves as necessary. You might then have to go back and readjust the spring tension just to allow a proper door closing sort of behavior. The balance of this video will be just to discuss those three methods in general because they all share some common rules that ought to be followed when it comes to installing closers. So, focusing on the regular arm, which is probably the second most common, with parallel arm being the most common, what you have is a reference to a few very important dimensions. And without getting, I won't be getting into the specifics on all of these dimensions, but I encourage you to reach out to us should you need to discuss specifics. What you're getting here is, on all three of the models of closer, you're getting a reference from the center line of the hinge to the first hole. Okay? And one thing to admonish before we get started with the important points is that you thoroughly study the installation instructions before drilling any holes, because it is, quite frankly, easy to misinterpret a template, and only upon further investigation do you realize it's a mistake. If you're using a template for a regular arm mount, but you're going to top jam mount the closer or vice versa, it's impossible to really fill that hole. So you'll want to digest the entire installation instructions. So what installation instructions are always going to have, and this area here is admittedly confusing. These black holes that you see here refer to the fact that if you're going to use this drop plate only, is where you're going to pull those holes from. You're not going to be using a drop plate most likely, so you would ignore those holes. But back to the important stuff. You're always going to have a distance from the center line of the hinge to the first hole. That distance is always based on the degree of opening. You can see in the chart here what that dimension is to be based on the degree of opening. The closer the body is to the vertical axis of pivoting of the hinge, the greater degree of opening you can accomplish. You will want to template the door closer to be in alignment with what degree of opening you wish to accomplish. It's crucial. If you're going to template the door closer so that it's going to open to only 100 degrees, that's important to know. You would not template it so that it would open to 180 degrees, because it will foul your control of the door closer itself. And quite frankly, there would be no reason to allow the door closer to be exposed to that sort of cycling when you're not going to ever open it past 100 degrees. Okay. Now, that's the first dimension. The next important thing really is, then you're going to have your center to center on, and on this closer, that's 12 inch. I want to confirm that because I would have guessed it to be a little bit different. Yeah, it's certainly 12-inch. So if you are replacing a door closer and it's 12-inch center to center, this is your closer, which is very common. The next crucial thing to know, so you've got your horizontal dimension from the hinge, center line of the hinge, it's not from the edge of the door. If it's measuring from the edge of the door, you're going to add a 1/16 of an inch, something like that. And frankly, more importantly, is the dimension referenced from the top of the door to that first hole. And on this regular arm for the TC511, it's 1 3/8. Okay? So these 4 holes here are the ones that we're drilling. Horizontally, important. Vertically, very crucial. Okay? Templating it based on the degree of opening. All of that is the same regardless of the method of installation, whether it be top jam, regular arm, or parallel arm mount. You will have the power, once you have the screws located on the door and frame, do a reality check. Review everything. Maybe walk away. If it's your first time ever installing a door closer, take your time and do a reality check. You don't want to drill a hole that's not supposed to be there. Speaking from experience. If you're doing more than one closer, maybe 3, I would make a template. I would cut myself a piece of wood. I would locate my holes on that template so that my repeatability was perfect and far easier, eliminating the possibility of making a mathematical measuring mistake. Then the power adjustment chart is the, after attaching the arm per the diagram, of course, you've got all that laid out. And that vertical dimension is crucial because you need to be sure that the arm is going to behave properly, and if there's a misalignment of the vertical location of your screw holes, your closer will possibly not work at all, or you'll have conflict between the top of the door, face of the door, the header, and the closer itself. So that all needs to be accurate. You get the arm attached per the diagram based on your installation. Very simple sort of position there to refer to. Then, of course, finally the power adjustment setting. So what that does is refers to the width of the door, okay, whether it's interior or exterior, because they know that the air conditions change. A number of adjustments on the spring tension is what this is, again, is based on the method of mounting as well. A regular arm mount for a 3-foot door interior is different than a parallel arm mount for that same 3-foot interior door. It's different. The geometry of a closer changes, and how efficient an arm is pulling the door closed from the cylinder when it's parallel versus when it's perpendicular is the reason by which that is defined. So the conclusion really is following the installation instructions after a relatively thorough review of them is the key to success. And the approach to most door closers are really all the same, unless you have something very special and specific about the closer that you are working on. It's likely that they will all follow this same sort of logic. Okay. Global is a name synonymous with door closers, and good quality door closers as well. I wouldn't hesitate to use their products. I would be sure that I'm using their products based on the application that is necessary. You will find, if you're trying to install this on a 4-foot parallel arm door, that you may not have the kind of closing power that you need to get it closed. You need to look at some other type of door closer. But their offering is excellent, a comprehensive offering of door closers. So, if you have any questions on the Global door, TC511 in an aluminum finish, ADA compliant, even though the box doesn't say it, or any other Global door product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you very much.